So we've just taken the feed live on YouTube. Another 30 seconds.
You have to inform enhanced users office.
Sir, please ask the FM to join in.
Yeah, Mr. Bhaskar, we are ready.
Just give me a couple of minutes.
So we'll go live once the Honorable FM joins in.
Yes, please. Once you
Sure.
sits, and then Shivashri, it's the queue for you. Wait for some time.
Sure.
And
Good evening and a warm welcome to one and all. I'm extremely happy that we've all gathered here this evening in honor of a centennial miscellaneist, Nani Palkhivala. I'm Shivashri Skandaprasad, a bioengineering graduate from Shastra University and a performing artist. And we will begin this event invoking the blessings of the Almighty. मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृज्येत्रीं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृज्येत्रीम् आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत आत्मवदेव परानपि पश्यत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेष्वक्रममाक्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृज्येत्री मैत्रीं भजत अखिलहृज्येत्री जननी पृथ्वी कामदुभास्ते जननी पृथ्वी कामदुभास्ते जनको देवः सकल दयालु जनको देवः सकल दयालु दाम्यतदत्त दयध्वं जनतां दाम्यतदत्त दयध्वं जनतां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानाम्. I now request Dr. S. Vaidya Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor, Shastra deemed to be University, to welcome the distinguished gathering.
Honorable Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji, Revered Chairman of Tata Sons, Mr. N. Chandrasekharan, members of the Shastra family, distinguished members of the audience, and friends from the print and electronic media. I'm extremely happy to welcome all of you for this evening's event on behalf of Shastra Deemed University. And this event is Shastra's humble tribute to one of India's tallest statesmen, a jurist, economist, corporate leader, diplomat, philanthropist, and above all, a very noble and simple genius, Nani Palkhivala. The very name Nani Palkhivala sends an emotive experience for many of us who can see the second coming of the one and only Nani Ji, whose centenary year we are celebrating. We are truly blessed to have amidst us the Honorable Union Minister to inaugurate the Nani Palkhivala centenary celebrations of Shastra and also launch the TATA-Palkhivala chair for alternate dispute resolutions and artificial intelligence at the Shastra Law School. The presence of the Honorable Minister is symbolic of the dual prowess of Nani Ji, both finance and company law. And what more, a fitting moment than this to have the Union Minister herself for today's event. We welcome you, Madam. Mr. N. Chandrasekharan's presence for this event is an equal honor for all of us. When he assumed office as the chairman of Tata Sons, I very distinctly remember my tweet that N. Chandra is the 21st century Indian response to the 20th century American Jack Welch. A Shastra well-wisher, Mr. Chandrasekharan has significantly encouraged the research and academic growth of Shastra, which I'm sure has lived up to his expectations, and we assure our continuing best. The association of Nani Palkhivala with the House of Tatas is well known, and I'm sure Mr. Chandrasekharan himself will have memories of Nani ji that he will always cherish. I welcome you, sir, for this event and assure you that the support you are extending for the TATA-Palkhivala chair will celebrate on the emerging mix of law and technology. The Nani Palkhivala Memorial Lecture is one of Shastra's flagship events, which saw speakers of great eminence like Mr. Ajit Doval, Sriman K. Parasaran, Mr. N. Chandrasekharan himself, Supreme Court Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul and their likes in the past. Continuing that practice of inviting the best minds to deliver the 16th Nani Palkhivala Memorial Lecture, we have with us Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. Madam, we once again feel very elated and excited to listen to you again. We distinctly remember your reference to ADR and company law when you addressed the NPAC in Chennai early this year, just before the budget. And I'm sure you're going to give the listeners a sumptuous treat today. Friends, Shastra is planning a series of activities in honor of Nani Palkhivala during this centenary year, beginning with the Nani Palkhivala Taxation Moot Court, which is India's one of best tax moots. And at this point of time, I would like to thank the Forum of Free Enterprise, the Nani Palkhivala Memorial Trust, and in particularly Senior Advocate Mr. Arvind Datta for their contribution to bring the Nani Palkhivala tax moot to the Shastra Law School from 2015, and ever since we are blessed to conduct this prestigious moot. Besides this, there will be a lot of training programs, special debates, quizzes, another research chair in the area of taxation, development of online courses in ADR, taxation, common law, legal aid camps, and these are the variety of activities that we have planned during the centennial year, all of which will culminate with a valedictory function next year, for which I request and anticipating a very positive response that the Union Finance Minister herself will come for the valedictory function in physical presence at Shastra campus next year. This centenary celebrations will be a fitting tribute to the great Nani Palkhivala, to whom we owe a lot, not only for the way he protected the basic structure of our constitution, but also for his humanist approach to life and livelihoods. Shastra tried its best to have him on campus on numerous occasions in the past, but those were the days that flight timings were unreliable, and Nani ji was a man known for his punctuality, did not want to risk any delay. We are glad that we are somehow associated with the great man in a variety of forms, not only during his lifetime, but also after his untimely death. The TATA-Palkhivala Chair on ADR and AI is an initiative supported by the Tata Sons that shall see the confluence of ADR and AI, which shall be a double-barreled ammunition that can arrest the docket explosion in our judicial ecosystem. The proposed chair shall research on the convergence of ancient and modern ways of dispute resolution and the disruptive role of artificial intelligence in it. Amrit Bhargav, who is also amidst us this evening, a Shastra law graduate and a practicing advocate, will be the research scholar to be mentored by Sri K. Parasaran and Mr. Gurumurthy, and with all humility, myself. The chair will also be instrumental in creating an enlightened awareness on this growing confluence of ADR and AI. With this backdrop, I welcome all of you once again for this historic event. And may I now request the Honorable Union Minister to announce the inauguration of the centenary celebrations and the launch of the TATA-Palkhivala chair, which will be followed by a small musical inauguration.
Thank you very much. Do I announce by word? All right. So it gives me immense satisfaction, and I'm very humbled, in fact, because I have a great admiration for Sri Nani Palkhivala, and I wouldn't have imagined being in finance ministry at all, but there am I, and today it gives me immense pleasure and an honor to, in his name, a chair being established, and I come here in all my humility to inaugurate the centenary celebrations and also to announce the establishment of a chair for alternative dispute resolution and also for artificial intelligence. Happy to announce both.
It is now my proud privilege to invite our Honorable Finance Minister and Minister for Corporate Affairs of India, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, to deliver the 16th Nani Palkhivala Memorial Lecture.
Thank you. Shri Vaidya Subramaniam, Shri Chandrasekhar, and to all the Shastra universities, students, faculty, and invited guests. It gives me great pleasure to be here with you all today. And also I feel very honored that the Shastra University thought it fit that I should be here at a time when you're commencing the centenary celebrations of the eminent, most respected jurist, economist, and a great human being, Sri Nani Palkhivala. And also at this time, it's only appropriate that you're setting up a chair for alternate dispute resolution and artificial intelligence. I start with a word of thanks for the Tata Group who are establishing this chair or who are basically sponsoring this chair. There cannot be a greater tribute for the mind that was Nani Palkhivala, a versatile individual. In our, at least in my childhood, when I was into school and college, it was such a pleasure to have to read newspapers and also magazines, everything to do about, or everything to do with Sri Nani Palkhivala. In later years, of course, when I was still in the college and when I came over to Delhi to pursue my higher education, it was of immense pleasure to hear Palkhivala's budget speeches. I know they all started in 1958, a very small affair, but gradually attained such audience that I would like to repeat an oft-said observation that if there were budget speeches, there were two in the country, one by the FM and the other, which was much more popular, by Sri Nani Palkhivala. Palkhivala obviously spoke on the budget which is presented formally in the parliament to explain it to the common public. But he explained it in such a beautiful way, simple way, in such listener-friendly and comprehensive way that became far more popular than the budget itself. So that exercise from 1958, Palkhivala sharpened and also made it a lot more endearing to the Indian public. So today for me as a finance minister, to talk about somebody who excelled year after year in recasting the budget for the sake of the common public is only a great honor, and I feel that I'm too small to even give a tribute to the great mind that was Palkhivala. The other aspect on which I think I see this God-given opportunity for me to do some work in the memory of Sri Palkhivala is, although the law and practice of income tax is that wonderful tome that was written ages ago by Sri Jamshedji Kangda, who was his senior and partner, who jointly, Palkhivala and Sir Jamshedji had jointly authored this tome. Unhesitatingly, Sir Jamshedji attributed it to the extensive work that Palkhivala had done for the book. So why does that interest me? It is a truth that even today that forms the essential reference manual for anybody who wants to talk on Indian taxation. But being here and guided by a Prime Minister who's constantly looking at, clearly conveying to the Indian taxpayer that he wouldn't like to call them as taxpayer, he would like to call them as nation builders. It is the honest taxpayer who actually helps build this country, who actually helps government after government to carry forward every such social welfare program, which is absolutely critical for the livelihoods of the poorest of the poor in this country. And therefore, but for the honest taxpayer, there is no way in which any government of India can even plan for 1 year of the economy, 1 year of social welfare, and 1 year ahead with all kinds of fundamental infrastructure that you want to create for the country. And therefore, a Prime Minister like Prime Minister Narendra Modi, under whose leadership all of us are working, has been very clear that this country has to make it simpler and also easy for tax compliance for a taxpayer. And that being the emphasis, this government has taken every possible measure to simplify the process, to ease the burden on the taxpayer in terms of compliance. And in spite of having had a direct taxation code preparing committee, we have gone through it and also tried simplifying the whole process, even from the last year. Before that was this great attempt to have one tax, one control, GST, which my respected predecessor, Sri Arun Jaitley, had really worked together with the states, honoring the federal structure, made sure that the indirect taxation in this country would be brought down to have only one structural format, and that was the GST. Now, this term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, since after 2019, when he was elected for the second time, we have spent a lot of time looking at simplifying the direct tax regime. And if you would recall, in spite of all the slowing down of the economy narrative which was around us, in September 2019 itself, we took that major step to bring down the corporate tax. And even then and now too, India stands as one of those countries where we have the lowest of rates for corporate performance, and also the corporate tax methodology itself has been so simplified that there are no exemptions, there are no benefits otherwise, there are no, if you have this or if you have that, simple, pay this much and over and done with corporate tax kind of an approach has been taken up since September 2019. Now, to follow that up, we have placed a lot of emphasis on getting the whole assessment process simplified so that no taxpayer in this country feels that there is something happening beyond what he normally sees in the papers that he receives. We started off with a simple approach that no local formation would give any letter to a tax assessee and collect a due from the taxpayer, that which may later on get disputed. So we had this whole thing of using technology to bring in transparency. At a time when you're talking about setting up a chair, to use artificial intelligence, to understand the impact of artificial intelligence, and also when you're looking at dispute resolution, alternative dispute resolution methodologies. I'd like to say here that in the process of simplifying taxation, assessments, and also scrutiny and surveys, we brought in as a first step what is called a document identity number, the DIN number as it is now become to be referred to. Without a document identification number, which will be auto-generated to the system, but yet a central system would lock that in, we have said very clearly to every taxpayer that that particular letter that you receive through the email or otherwise, if it doesn't have the DIN number, that is the document identification number, you treat that letter as non-est. It shall not be valid per law. So you can just bin it and say, look, I received something, but it had no DIN, and therefore it is not valid document. So we gave that right to the taxpayer. The SSC should be sure that what he gets is not based on some subjective interpretation or subjective whims and fancies of a authority who just sends the letter. It had to be linked with a system which will keep an eye on what is going on. And even for scrutiny, it is not on an individual subjective assessment that we want to go and undertake a scrutiny. We are not going to have surveys or visits to taxpayers based on my likes or dislikes, based on some other officials' likes and dislikes. There will be a randomized way of big data analysis, not so random that even small taxpayers are being brought in, but random only to the extent that a larger tax incidence-based assessment will be done, and where there are big anomalies, apparent for an artificial intelligence-based assessment, we shall have the system flagging where the assessment has to be undertaken, where the assessment will have to start as a process. So it is not going to be any more possible for a random official who thinks he can, trouble a local tax assessing. Or it can be that I don't like the face of somebody, or I see a prospect of, earning something under the table that I can start doing assessments or scrutinies of them. It will be based on a system-generated way in which anomalies are tracked. And based on the anomaly which the system red flags, the scrutiny will be done. So the personal likes and dislikes are not going to be anymore the driver of scrutiny. And therefore, that personal interface, which becomes a bargaining point, will no longer be a part of our tax system at all. We are furthering that by saying the assessment itself will be largely based on a formula, based on self-assessment, and post that the system will again look at if your earnings and the different silos through which your money is coming in, this is the amount you're going to have to pay. A pre-filled approach to a taxpayer's forms will be already into the system. So when you have your income tax assessment to be filed, you get a pre-filled in form. You may reject some, or you may say, sorry, the system has forgotten this, I need to add this. But you don't have to later on wonder if you forgot something, and that is going to be an instrument for people to come and survey or question. So the pre-filled form gives you a good beginning where you either reject some or accept some or bring in a newer one which is not already in. In other words, this is going to be a system which works on trust the assessee, trust the taxpayer rather than doubt his intention. So the entire approach to the tax framework will be on the basis of respect the honest taxpayer, trust him, and receive the documents he gives you in the name of submission. And later, if there is a question, it will be based on artificial intelligence and the pattern in which these payments are happening. So in a way, today, I'm extremely happy that when we are talking about celebrating the centenary of an eminent tax expert like Nani, who throughout his life stood for the constitutional authority. In fact, I do remember that he constantly also brought in wherever relevant that constitutional morality is probably equally or if not more important than the constitutional legality. This is something which he constantly referred to. So if the constitutional morality is important as much as the legality, I think even in systems like taxation, it is important to understand that if a taxpayer morally feels as per the given policy, this is what he has to pay, and it is coming out through self-assessment, it is all the better. And that is where this government underlines the importance of trusting the tax assessee and giving him the opportunity to look at every pre-filled form and then give his assessment. So this faceless assessment, as we are calling it now, which is going to depend on a lot of digitized assessment process and digitized submission of the forms. And subsequently, also appeals are going to be faceless. You're clearly laying the trust at the table of the tax assessee, and there cannot be a greater tribute, I think, in the centenary year of Nani Palkhivala than to make sure technology is brought in. And with technology, we are laying all the trust on the Indian taxpayer because we don't see him as taxpayer, we see him as a nation builder. And it is that respect which Prime Minister would reimpose on every nation builder of this country, with which we are able to give a better service to the taxpaying public. So reduction in the pressure of scrutiny, reduction in the pressure of having to face up to an individual who comes to question on your commercial and other dealings itself is, I think, a good way of restoring the confidence of the taxpayer. You would have also probably noticed that in the budget that was presented in 2020, although many of the assumptions obviously are now challenged because of the pandemic, one thing is very clear, that in personal income tax, we've made it very clear that there will be an exemption-free regime. This is your income, you pay this much, and that's the end of the story. Deductions and exemptions and so on, which brought in greater and greater layers to the compliance network and therefore burdened the taxpayer, are removed. We came up with an alternative system where the rates are less, and it was purely based on you pay the rate and that's the end of the story kind of a tax regime. That was brought in for the first time, even as we continued with the old system, which was full of exemptions. We didn't want to upset the taxpayer, and therefore we gave that layer, which even as the existing system continues, for those who have no desire for exemptions, for those who don't benefit anymore, let us say those who are closer to their retirement, who have had all their commitments fulfilled and who didn't require the exemptions, who have no home loans to worry about, who have no savings to then start commencing and so on, we thought it was better to bring in a system without any exemptions. And that alternative system with lower tax rates was very happily welcomed by many. We have brought in that system as a tribute to the Indian taxpayer so that he chooses where he wants to be rather than be compelled by a regime of exemptions, which probably he doesn't benefit from at all. So that was also something which Prime Minister thought that the Indian taxpayer should have a choice. And again, that's something which happened in 2020 February, a month after the centenary actually should have begun, January 2020 for Nani-Palkhivala. So I'm so happy that we are part of a government being led by a Prime Minister who honestly thinks that the Indian taxpayer needs to be served better. And one of the announcements, which of course I made, and I shall not elaborate on it now, is to give the Indian taxpayer a charter of his rights. There are only few countries in the world, very few countries in this world, you can name them. Canada probably, Australia, UK, and the US perhaps, are the only few countries where there is a charter of rights for the taxpayer. And it clearly states its obligation towards the nation, as much as clearly pronouncing on the rights. We are attempting that. I announced it as part of the Atmanirbhar campaign. We are very keen to provide the Indian taxpayer a charter of his rights and obligations. We should be coming with that. And one other aspect which I would like to have this August gathering look at is in the last probably a day or two, we have been from the Ministry of Finance clearly stating as to who the total number of PAN card holders, total number of tax filers, and the total number of scrutiny as a percentage of the total tax filers for the entire nation, for India as a whole. The number of scrutiny as a percentage of the total number of people who file their taxes is, please do not be surprised, is 0.25%. Not even 1% in total are being scrutinized for their tax-related matters. But of course, even that 0.25 can hurt those who have the scrutiny on them. But the moment that happens today, obviously because all of us have the benefit of immediately accessing public opinion through the social media and everything, we hear a lot of people saying, what's happening? Why are the tax authorities after us? Are we not paying our tax properly? Whilst respecting all that, I want to put it before you that matter of fact between 2014 and 2020, the number of scrutiny cases are only coming down. And as of 18-19, the scrutiny as a percentage of total filers is, I repeat, 0.25% only. So I would like to highlight this and put it before you that we as a government take extreme satisfaction that we respect the taxpayer, as I said, as a nation builder, and would want to continuously move towards simpler and simpler systems of compliance and keep it as far as possible so that there's transparency and underlining the rights of the taxpayer rather than, be keen only to collect the taxes. So if this, I can say at the beginning of what I want to present before you in the name of centenary celebrations of Nani-Palkhivala, I would just also talk a few words on how in the pandemic context, how when the global order is changing, post the unprecedented, unparalleled challenge that this pandemic has thrown all of us to. Globally, I don't think the world is going to be the same all over again. Post the pandemic, I think a lot of reset is going to happen. Governance paradigms are also going to be challenged. And India, in a way, has shown global leadership because in the last 5 years, providentially, India spent a lot of time and energy and the drive with which Prime Minister went ahead with the optical fibers, with digitizing the Indian economy, and to the extent that digital services were extended. look at those 4 major activities which have stood by us during this pandemic. If you did not have Jan Dhan accounts, directly transferring money into the poorest of poor and their accounts during this pandemic, when nobody could go out of their houses, we would have found it extremely difficult to hand money over to the poorest of poor who needed it. Many advanced countries were writing checks and looking at door delivering the checks, whereas India was much ahead in being able to do a direct benefit transfer into the bank account. And of course, that was supplemented by a lot of bank mitra, the banking correspondents who went into their villages, into their houses, doorsteps, and said, you want money, you take it, I know your details, but here is the machine through which I can give you. Digitization. Digitization of payment also helped the urban, let us say, citizens who could purchase online many of the things that they wanted. And that was enabled by the unified payment interface that India brought in, the UPI. Today, India stands out for payment through digital modes. We crossed the check stage to a card stage. From a card stage today, everything is in your phone. Transaction, even without a card, is happening through the phone. Your QR codes are of great help. Vegetable vendors today all over the country are benefiting from QR codes. So providentially, and because of the vision of the Prime Minister, that this country has to rapidly move towards digital payments, we have reached a stage where globally we are standing out as leaders in the field. We are able to tell the people that you didn't have to have problems like us, but even with all the problems, here we go, we have achieved this kind of a technology advancement. And that has today helped not only the poorest of poor, but the entire banking system realizes with social distancing, it couldn't have been possible for them to service their customers. If that's the second, the use of technology, again, has done a big difference to us. Even before COVID, I remember telemedicine played a very big role. We, in fact, in India, use this strange expression, medical tourism, where people from different countries could come to India, have their treatment and go away. But even while coming here, they could have their doctor back home, also interact with the doctors here and perform surgeries or take advice from them and so on. So telemedicine benefited our medical tourism much before COVID. But during COVID, even for our own citizens who couldn't come out because of the pandemic or because they were afflicted by this COVID, they needed to be advised on phone, telemedicine has helped us. So again, this emphasis on technology in India has seen us being able to service our citizens better even during a very challenging time like the lockdown because of the COVID. The last, which I would like to underline, look at the way education is taking to technology. Classrooms are being run in schools. Yes, there is a challenge. Poorest of poorest children are wondering how they can benefit from it because their parents can't afford to get them home. There is a serious issue there. I'm not unmindful of it. But the fact remains that today's schools are adapting to using technology, so are universities and colleges. The change which has made us live through the lockdown in whatever way, with many cut downs and compromises, have all been facilitated because the rapidity with which technology has been enabled and the swiftness with which the Indian skill to adapt has readily taken on to these technologies. So Indian skill, Indian inclination to use technology, Indian mind to build on innovation are things which we can never ignore. And that is why when Prime Minister spoke about Atmanirbhar Bharat, He said it depends on 5 pillars. What are those 5 pillars? Economic transformation, infrastructure, system. For anything that you work, you need a system to support it and probably even a backup system. And that system obviously will have to be technology driven. So economic transformation, infrastructure, system, demography, India and its population, and demand. So this Atmanirbhar Bharat, for which all kinds of steps are being announced, is going to depend on these 5 pillars. And in these 5 pillars, if economic transformation is going to have to move this country into a new reset format, technology-enabled systems, transformation of many of our production and other systems which are all age-old, which probably will have to be rethought out now, infrastructure, inclusive of such infrastructure which can take care of our technology-driven methods of servicing our country. And for all this, intellectual property rights, innovation, which is the core behind every one of what we have to do. And that is why even today, and I'm really happy, the Reserve Bank of India yesterday, when it, after its monetary policy committee meeting, very clearly said that they would place the startups also under priority sector lending benefits. So the startups will have to also cope with this and benefit from all the facilities that we give, so that the 5 pillars are strengthened, the economic transformation can happen. Monies are being allocated, whether it is 1 lakh crore for agricultural infrastructure. The pipeline that I announced in December, on 31st of December 2019, whereby infrastructure of all kinds are going to be built, for which we have announced for a 5-year the total amount that we want to talk about. 30,000 crores being given for small and medium industries for as partial guarantee based, a subordinate debt based system through, so that they are getting also equity, MSMEs being supported. So I have a feeling I've crossed my 20 minutes, but I think there's so much to talk about. Shastra-like universities will have to give us a lot of ideas as to how the young minds want India to move. Here is a prime minister and here is a government which is willing to hear, which is ready to take inputs, which is responding to every such requirement. And above all, a university which has a chair to look at alternative dispute resolution should also know that in one of the recent cabinet decisions, we have come up with an approval for making India an arbitration hub. An arbitration hub which will be able to at least deal with all those Indian corporate disputes which are going to Singapore or going to London for dispute resolution. So if India's arbitration skills, if lawyers were trained for arbitration, if Indian legal system gets adequately funded and resourced, we'll be one of the good arbitration hubs. And therefore, this chair that you are establishing today in the centenary year of Sri Nani Palkhivala for ADR, alternative dispute resolution, and also giving it an artificial intelligence link, you're just doing the right thing. And I wish you all a very big good luck. And I hope this entire thing would go very well throughout this year. I'm sure Shastra is going to be active in paying its tribute to the great mind that was Nani Palkhivala. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am, for an inspirational lecture studded with the intellectualism of Sri Nani Palkhivala. May I now invite Sri N. Chandrasekharan, Chairman, Tata Sons, to deliver the Guest of Honor address.
Thank you. Honorable Finance Minister of India, Shri Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor of the Shastra Deemed University, Shri Amrut Bhargav, and the faculty, students, and all other viewers. This is a very important occasion, and it is my great privilege and honor to be part of this event as Shastra University starts its year-long celebrations to pay tribute to Shri Nani Palkhivala, a distinguished statesman, unanimously accepted by everyone as one of India's foremost jurists for his intellect, for his economic thoughts, scholastic supremacy, oratory skills, and you can go on and on. His association with the Tata Group is something that is very, very special, and his contribution to our group and also to the nation has been talked about and also outlined earlier today by both Sri Vaidya Subramaniam and also our Honorable Finance Minister. I also want to say that my association with the Shastra University has been continuing for more than a couple of decades now, and it's a privilege to work with a school like Shastra, who has been systematically not only building what a university should be built like, but also the number of areas in which they are spreading their wings, not only in terms of the domain, the subjects, but most importantly, research, and also a lot of thought leadership by being relevant to the issues that are important to be addressed, discussed, debated for building a better India. So I want to congratulate also the Shastra University for what they are doing and what they have achieved so far. And so it's a double privilege to be part of this TATA-Palkhivala chair for the Tata Group. Now, I think coming to the specific chair itself, I think it's a very, very important initiative because our judicial system has a huge capacity issue. As per the National Judicial Data Grid, somewhere around 3 crore cases are pending in one court or another. Just if you take the High Court and Supreme Courts, we have over 45 lakh cases that are pending. Typically, a case takes anywhere from 4 to 5 years for resolution. And normally, 40% of the total disputed settlement is already spent during this period. But if you put the time value of money and the NPV and all those calculations, almost 100% is gone. From a corporate sector point of view, the estimated number is around 45,000 crores per annum. So I think it's a huge overhead, huge spend, huge inefficiency, which needs to be addressed. I think at this time, a subject like alternative dispute resolution or ADR is something that can make an enormous difference. It is about coming up with the processes and modalities and systems that are required in order to be able to give confidence to both disagreeing parties that a settlement can happen or a judgment can happen with little or no litigation. And it's also very interesting that you combined the alternative dispute resolution along with artificial intelligence. I have been championing the concept of digital for a few years now. I've said it time and again that any problem of our nation, societal problem that is at scale, can only be solved by the use of technology, but not by technology alone. The solution happens when we can remove the halo about the jargons of technology. There is no elitist thing about technology. You got to make sure that in AI, a machine learning, a big data analytics, cloud, all of this in combination can be made available to solve large societal problems by putting them in the hands of large masses, people who are skilled and no skilled. Technology can never be a solution. Technology only with humans can be a solution. So I'm very, very glad that you are coming up with this combination. I believe interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary approach is the way to address big problems, and also I believe it is a way to address the jobs problem. And so in that context, I feel the time is right, both for ADR and AI, and I am glad that you have taken this discipline, and it is our privilege to be part of this initiative and create a chair at Shastra. And I also want to take the opportunity to convey my deep appreciation and gratitude to our Honorable Finance Minister, under whose leadership many steps are being taken on positive transformation, and our support for initiatives like this and for many other things that she is championing in the form of transparency. It's fair for me to say that she has the toughest job at the toughest time. And I only want to say that the leadership that has to take us to this economic recovery will require not only work from the government, but from all of us. And so I thought that it is appropriate for me to thank her for being here to champion this initiative and also for her support to this space. And I also want to use the opportunity to put in a word to champion digital to all the students out there who could be studying computer science or technology and who could be studying law or liberal arts. I would just say that it's so important to get this bridge right. So those who are specializing in a field, not in technology, for them to appreciate the power of technology and what it means for the technology to give life to their conceptual idea in a gigantic proportion, and for the technologists to feel that it is important for them to understand the core problem that is faced by a particular domain, a segment of society. And simple interventions, usually very simple interventions from technology, make the biggest impact. The more complex interventions we think, the initiatives don't take off. So I would just like to request people in the audience to think about digital, because it can really help us solve big issues. And with those words, I would like to once again thank you for the opportunity and wish Shastra University, Dr. Vaidya Subramaniam and his father, Sir Sethuraman, all the very best. And I hope all of you who are viewers today are staying safe and healthy. And I wish you all a lot of grit and patience and safety during this time, because this pandemic situation will pass and we will come out on the other side much stronger, and we will see a flourishing India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the support Tata Sons has given to this unique initiative. And as a fitting tribute to Nani ji and this event, I request Dr. S. Vaidya Subramaniam to read out a message from scholar jurist Justice M.N. Venkatachalaya, former Chief Justice of India.
A message from the former Chief Justice. On the auspicious occasion of the launch of the TATA-Palkhivala Chair on Artificial Intelligence and Alternative Dispute Resolution, I convey to Tata Sons and Shastra Deemed University every good wish for the grand success of the academic innovation. The world is no longer divided by ideology, but by technology. Those who own data, it is said, own the future. The impact of new disruptive technologies needs a new category of lawyers whose specialized knowledge becomes critical and influences the adjudicative process. Judges may be less and less of their image as an impartial umpire of the common law adversarial system and become more participatory. In a recent book published in 2019 titled Online Courts and the Future of Justice, Richard Susskind examines the immense potential of IT to sustain ADR methods. ADR is a civilized alternative to the tyranny of a worn-out legal machine. Justice is the greatest interest of humans on earth. Long ago, a British judge cautioned that if Britain's business methods were as antiquated as its legal methods, then it would have been a bankrupt country long ago. AI is not an unmixed blessing. It can enhance inequality, as it is the richest 100 persons together own wealth more than the 4 billion poorest. AI can even manipulate democratic process, influencing voter preference and behavior. It can spur newer concepts of wealth and property unfamiliar hitherto to legal thought and terminology. All this will be part of a new revolution. Law and legal methods cannot remain untouched by it. However, in justice delivery, the human element seems to be an inevitable concomitant of the idea of justice itself. Justice Sri M.N. Venkatachalaya, former Chief Justice of India, Shravana Purnima, August 3/2020 signed at Bengaluru.
I now request Amrit Bhargav, a Shastra Law graduate and research scholar in the TATA-Palkhivala chair, to deliver the vote of thanks.
It is indeed my privilege to present the vote of thanks on this landmark occasion in the history of Shastra deemed School of Law. Let me begin with Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Sitaraman ji, for her kind presence in inaugurating Palkhivala Centenary celebrations and the TATA-Palkhivala on artificial intelligence and alternate dispute resolution. Delivering a vision-filled Nani Palkhivala Memorial Lecture, Honorable touched upon the multi-splendored personality of Sri Nani Palkhivala and said that the establishment of this chair was a tribute. Recalling the Else and Hero Sri Nani Palkhivala and Palkhiwala's book was a guiding tome in Indian law, laying stress on the value of the honest taxpayer and scrutiny and the tax framework. Honorable Madam also said that as a global leader, especially in the post-COVIDian world order. Surely, Honorable Madam's words will remain etched in our thoughts and continues. I convey our gratitude to Sri N. Chandrasekharan, Chairman Tata Sons, whose address profusion especially for youngsters like us. I must hasten to add this one-of-a-kind initiative deserves our unstinted appreciation and profound sense of gratitude. In his address, he said that Sri Nani Palkhivala was a distinguished jurist statesman and recalled Naniji's association with the Tata Group, observing that the subject like alternate dispute resolution would make a tremendous impact and increase parties' confidence with dispute settlement. He also observed that along with laying the on the bridge between technology, youngsters will have to reconfigure their patterns of research. Surely, sir, these apt words of foresight are a concerted call for academic engagement. On seeking to build this intellectually synergizing monument to an equally monumental personality, an auspicious Bhumi Puja has been performed today. It is my duty to add, today also witnessed the inauguration of the centenary year celebrations of the late Sri Nani Palkhivala at Shastra University, and we will be hosting year-long commemorative events in everlasting memory of that great gem of India's legal world. In both jurisdiction and jurisprudence, the intersecting interface between artificial intelligence and alternate dispute resolution is an endeavor to uncover the might of transdisciplinary impact on our legal system. Fundamentally, we promise the initiative will ultimately aim to present, as the former Chief Justice of India, Sri M.N. Venkatachalaya said in his message for us, humans on earth, and I may add bowline and line. In this, we will surely gauge the Indian rhythm in the algorithms of justice. On this occasion, let me also heartily thank Professor R. Sethuraman, Chancellor Sastra, Dr. S. Vaidya Subramaniam, Dean School, Dean T, student friend, and varied cross-section of viewers from across India and for witnessing this event in large numbers. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you all so much. And on behalf of the university, I'm wishing you all a safe stay. Namaste.